Number 1.
Mary Lang was born on September 23, 1952, to George and Lenora Lang and named after her grandmother. She has a brother, Paul, and two sisters, Kathleen Gokin of Shorewood, Illinois, and Barbara Jean Ronda, now deceased. Lang was a beautiful, energetic, and happy woman, but believed she would die young. According to a November 13, 1984 article from the Wichita Eagle-Beacon, Lang kept a journal and wrote on March 20, 1973, "I had a really quacky dream. Dreamt I was in a grocery store and someone wanted to kill me." Another entry dated September 24, 1978, more than 5 years after the first entry, and following a car accident that hospitalized her for 3 days, stated, "I was afraid to drive for a while, but finally decided if I was going to die my number was up and there was no way I could get out of it. When God wants me, he'll get me. I'm sure. I have a strange feeling I'm going to die young, but then I really don't want to live to be old." Later that year, Lang's boyfriend, William Paul Jernigan, 24, died of asphyxiation near Stafford when blowing snow drifted over his car during a blizzard. The two had met at college. Lang received her bachelor's degree in social work from Fort Hays State University and was a credit hour away from receiving her master's degree in counseling. She moved to Dallas in 1980 to find work in her selected field. To support herself, Lang worked as a cocktail waitress at night and spent her days interviewing for jobs related to her college degree. After 4 months, she decided city life was not for her and returned to Hays, where she moved into an apartment with a couple of friends. In Hays, Lang found local work as a cocktail waitress and a summer intern job with the State Employment Service. Unfortunately, her friends eventually graduated from college and married, leaving Lang as the apartment's sole tenant. Soon after, she began receiving obscene and harassing phone calls from an anonymous caller. She moved home with her parents in rural Hays and started working for Tom Boone, a local attorney who knew the Lang family. 3 weeks later, Lang vanished. On Friday, October 21, 1983, Lang, 31, left her office at the First National Bank building, now the Chester Building, around 1 p.m. to have papers signed by another lawyer in the same building. She was supposed to take the documents to 2 other attorneys in Hays to obtain their signatures and then return to work. When she had not returned by 2 p.m., Boone called the other attorneys and learned that she never arrived. Boone found Lang's red 1977 280Z Datsun parked about a half block away from the bank building in a city parking lot. The driver's door was slightly ajar, the legal papers were lying neatly on the passenger seat, and her purse was sitting on the floorboard of the passenger side. A 1983 newspaper's article states Boone called the Hays Police Department at 5:32 p.m. When officers arrived at the parking lot, they found no signs of a struggle or disturbance in or around the vehicle, and nothing was taken from Lang's purse. Boone said Lang was a good employee, and she would not have walked off the job. Her parents said the same thing, and nobody believed she ran away to start a new life elsewhere. The following Wednesday, October 26, Lang's coat was found lying in a ditch beside a county road near Yasamento, 7 miles north of Hays. Her car keys were inside one of the pockets. The discovery prompted law enforcement officials to focus their search in northwest Ellis County. The massive search spanned more than 260 square miles of Ellis County by the 1st of November. The police spent almost 1,000 hours on the investigation. However, they found no clues to Lang's whereabouts and called off the search. Later that month, police filmed a reenactment of the disappearance and sent videotapes to at least 8 television stations. While investigators received several phone calls afterward, no substantial leads resulted from the broadcast. Investigators interviewed about 200 people and followed up on all leads they received, including out-of-state ones, but nothing led them to find Lang. They had very little physical evidence to work with, and even though Lang disappeared in broad daylight during a busy time in Hays, no one had witnessed an abduction. Several people in the area saw Lang approach her car around 1 p.m., but there were no further sightings of her. On September 21, 1987, skeletal remains were found under a hedge tree 4 miles west of Lincolnville in Marion County, about 155 miles southeast of Hays. Investigators in the Lang case thought the body might be Lang. Marion County officials took the remains to Kansas State University, where anthropologist Michael Finnegan identified the body as a white female. Officials initially determined the victim to be between 22 and 26, but Finnegan said she could have been as old as 30. Regardless, Lang was 5 feet, 7 inches tall, and the victim was shorter. Police used Lang's dental records for comparison, but they did not match. It would take 32 years and advances in DNA technology before Kansas authorities identified the female. The Wichita Eagle reported in December 2019 that the Kansas Bureau of Investigation identified the victim as 22-year-old Michelle E. Carnell Burton of Wichita. According to the Eagle, Carnell Burton had left her home in Cherryvale in 1986 and lost contact with her family. Investigators believe she was murdered in June or July 1987. Mary Lang has never been found. Her family had her legally declared dead in 1990, 7 years after her disappearance. Stephen Carl Holdren is a person of interest in Lang's disappearance. He was from the Hayes area and was previously charged with killing 21-year-old Sharon K. Leading of Bellevue on August 31, 1977. Leading had been shot in the head and face, but died from strangulation. A jury found Holdren not guilty on January 25, 1979. Plainville police had charged Holdren with making an obscene phone call, which led to his arrest in 1978. According to the Bellevue Telescope, after 2 trials and being jailed for 6 months, a second Cloud County jury determined there was insufficient evidence and he was set free. However, Holdren did plead guilty to the obscene phone call charge and was placed on probation. He pled no contest to an indecent exposure charge in July 1981. On July 3, 1984, Fort Hays State University student Jacqueline Ann Peters, 30, had checked her mail outside her first-floor apartment in Hays. Shortly after, Holdren forced his way into her apartment and told Peters, "All right, this is a stick-up. This is a real gun. It's loaded with real bullets. I don't want to have to hurt anybody," the Telescope reported. However, he struck Peters several times in the head with a .25 caliber automatic pistol before shooting her in the upper right chest. Neighbors heard the woman's screams and called the police at 2:30 p.m. About 10 armed police officers surrounded the building, guarding all exits and evacuating other residents in the apartment building. More officers arrived as a backup to those already on the scene. Holdren surrendered at 3 p.m. Paramedics transported Peters to Hadley Regional Medical Center 10 minutes later. She survived and was released from the intensive care unit within a few days. Police charged Holdren with 6 counts: aggravated kidnapping, attempted felony murder, attempted aggravated robbery, aggravated assault, aggravated battery, and aggravated burglary. In February 1985, Holdren pleaded guilty to aggravated kidnapping in return for dismissing the other 5 charges. The following month, he was convicted of aggravated kidnapping and sentenced to life imprisonment. He died on February 12, 2019, at age 67. On the day Lang vanished, Holdren was in downtown Hays accosting several women. He was never charged in Lang's disappearance, and investigators are unsure of his involvement. Lang's parents are now deceased. Kathleen married in 1996, and she and her husband reside in Shorewood, Illinois. They have 2 children. If you have information regarding Mary Lang's disappearance, you should contact the Ellis County Sheriff's Office at 785-625-1040.
Number 2.
Brookley Chantille Louks was a Christmastime baby, born on December 12, 1982, to Scott and Kim Louks. She has a younger sister, Miss Ta Louks. Brookley was a stunning young woman, slender and petite with dark brown hair, blue eyes, and a beautiful smile. But as many teenagers do, Brookley started using drugs and eventually became addicted to methamphetamine. At 18, sheriff's deputies arrested Brookley on possession of paraphernalia and possession of marijuana in July 2001. She was released on a $2,000 bond. 3 months later, the police arrested Brookley again and charged her with theft. Within a few months, Brookley recovered from her addiction and was pursuing a modeling career. She and her sister briefly resided together in an Indianapolis apartment on the city's south side but they had recently moved out. Brookley kept all of her personal belongings at their father's Yorktown Farms apartment in the 1400 block of Cottonwood in Greenwood. But she often stayed with her best friend and boyfriend. He and Brookley planned to move into a new apartment together in Morrisville. On Monday, June 24, 2002, Brookley visited her father's apartment at 4 p.m. to pick up some clothing. She noticed his personal computer was missing and called the Greenwood police. Police Sergeant Don Harris arrived to take a burglary report around 5:30 p.m. and departed afterward. Brookley disappeared sometime after speaking with Harris, who was the last known person to see the teen. He said she appeared calm and polite and did not seem troubled. Brookley was wearing a light-colored blouse, dark shorts, and black, thick-soled open-toe shoes. She had planned on June 24 to attend a counseling appointment and visit her boyfriend in Martinsville. She consistently contacted the boyfriend to let him know she was on her way, but this time she did not. Brookley had told her mother she was spending the night at a friend's house, but she never arrived. A neighbor reported seeing Brookley enter the passenger side of her ice blue four-door 1990 Chevrolet Corsica. An unidentified male was sitting in the driver's seat. Kim Louks reported Brookley missing on June 26. Family and friends canvassed the neighborhoods, knocked on doors, and called Brookley's friends and co-workers, the Indianapolis Star reported. No one they spoke with remembered the teen acting strangely or observing any suspicious behavior around the Louks apartment. Another neighbor said he noticed an unfamiliar truck driving in the area around the time of Brookley's disappearance. On July 1, police received an anonymous tip and found Brittany's vehicle near Indiana 37 and Indiana 144. They searched nearby gravel pits and used a helicopter to scan nearby streams and streamside. There was no sign of the young woman anywhere or any clues to her whereabouts. According to the Louks, Greenwood PD did not take Brookley's disappearance seriously. Authorities said there was no indication of foul play and assumed Brookley had left voluntarily. Police also said there was no evidence connecting the stolen computer to her disappearance. The family became critical of the Louks investigation and hired private investigator Donald Campbell, a retired Indy homicide detective. He gave potential evidence collected to the Greenwood PD, but they refused it because he found it in Morgan County. However, they did not hesitate to take over Brookley's car located in Morgan County. The Louks family urged Greenwood Mayor Charles Henderson to pressure the police to investigate Brittany's disappearance. Kim Louks told the Indianapolis Star in July 2002, "They don't want anyone knowing anything about this case. They won't work without investigator, and when I asked Captain David Payne about it, he changed the subject. Gosh, one might think they might have been protecting Harris for whatever reason." Several factors suggest Brookley did not voluntarily leave. According to Michelle Holtkamp of the Daily Journal, she took no personal belongings with her, but there was a question about the location of a photo album. Brookley had earned only $8 in tips the day of her disappearance, and she had no other means of supporting herself. She had zero credit and debit cards or bank accounts and did not own a cell phone. Brookley religiously checked in with family, friends, and her boyfriend, but no one had heard from her. She left her kitten unattended, and that was uncharacteristic of her. Brookley's counselor at intensive outpatient service could not discuss the confidential sessions with her mother. However, he did tell her that her daughter had been doing well and that he would be shocked if she had left independently. Police later named Joseph Nowicki, 53, as a prime suspect in Brookley's case. He was a family friend of the Louks family and had known them for about 5 years. Nowicki resided in the 4600 block of Old Smith Valley Road and had an extensive criminal history that included murder, rape, and robbery. He knew Brookley because she had regularly assisted him with his horses. According to the police, a neighbor saw Brookley's car outside Nowicki's residence between 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. on the day she vanished. Police had found his fingerprint on the hood of Brookley's car and subsequently searched his residence in late July 2002. They seized Nowicki's van and personal computer and numerous guns, even though he could not possess firearms due to his prior convictions. Police arrested him on weapons charges. He claimed the guns belonged to his wife and that he only cleaned them. Authorities also found blood in his workshop and evidence that someone had attempted to clean up a considerable amount of blood on the floor. Nowicki initially claimed he had injured himself while working on a project and had used a rag to clean up the blood. However, the police tested the blood and it matched Brookley's. Nowicki then changed his story, saying Brookley had cut her finger while doing upholstery work for him. Authorities said there was not enough blood to indicate he or someone else had killed her there. Nowicki's acquaintance, Melinda Owen, told authorities Nowicki informed her that Brookley was missing during a phone conversation. He asked her to keep the information quiet and told her he had planned to hire a private investigator to find Brookley. Nowicki's phone records showed he had placed numerous calls to the Louks family and several others on the night of the disappearance. He was looking for a ride from the area of Indiana 37 and Indiana 144, roughly a mile from where police found Brookley's car. He also placed a call to Scott Louks on June 25. According to the Charlie Project, Nowicki reportedly told other witnesses that he and Brookley were involved in an illegal prescription pill transaction in late June 2002. He said that he recognized an individual who accompanied her to their final meeting as an undercover cop, Harris maybe? Authorities never confirmed the information. Kim Louks said Nowicki obsessed over her daughter. He became visibly upset before she disappeared because the teen had not visited him recently. Instead, she had been hanging out with other teenagers. Police questioned Nowicki and Brookley's disappearance. He told them he believed she met with an ill fate. WTHR reported that Nowicki had ties to another missing person case. Jean Derringer, 55, who lived in Greenwood, disappeared in 1996, and Nowicki was the last person to see him. Nowicki and Derringer became more than just acquaintances when working together at Southport High School as maintenance employees. Police found blood evidence in the Derringer house in 1996 and wanted to compare it to blood evidence found in Nowicki's house during the Louks investigation. Nowicki pleaded not guilty to the weapons charges. He was released from prison in 2003 and died from cancer on August 29 of that year. He never gave a deathbed confession. Greenwood PD stated the case would likely never officially be solved with Nowicki dead. Nowicki is not the only person who acted suspiciously after Brookley's disappearance. So did her father, Scott Louks. He and Nowicki were regular fishing buddies. Nowicki resided in the 4600 block of Old Smith Valley Road and had an extensive criminal history that included murder, rape, and robbery. He knew Brookley because she had regularly assisted him with his horses. According to the police, a neighbor saw Brookley's car outside. Authorities also found blood in his workshop and evidence that someone had attempted to clean up a considerable amount of blood on the floor. Nowicki initially claimed he had injured himself while working on a project and had used a rag to clean up the blood. However, the police tested the blood and it matched Brookley's. Nowicki then changed his story, saying Brookley had cut her finger while doing upholstery work for him. Authorities said there was not enough blood to indicate he or someone else had killed her there. Nowicki's acquaintance, Melinda Owen, told authorities Nowicki informed her that Brookley was missing during a phone conversation. He asked her to keep the information quiet and told her he had planned to hire a private investigator to find Brookley. Nowicki's phone records showed he had placed numerous calls to the Louks family and several others on the night of the disappearance. He was looking for a ride from the area of Indiana 37 and Indiana 144, roughly a mile from where police found Brookley's car. He also placed a call to Scott Louks on June 25. According to the Charlie Project, Nowicki reportedly told other witnesses that he and Brookley were involved in an illegal prescription pill transaction in late June 2002. He said that he recognized an individual who accompanied her to their final meeting as an undercover cop, Harris maybe? Authorities never confirmed the information. Kim Louks said Nowicki obsessed over her daughter. He became visibly upset before she disappeared because the teen had not visited him recently. Instead, she had been hanging out with other teenagers. Police questioned Nowicki and Brookley's disappearance. He told them he believed she met with an ill fate. WTHR reported that Nowicki had ties to another missing person case. Jean Derringer, 55, who lived in Greenwood, disappeared in 1996, and Noicki was the last person to see him. Noicki and Derringer became more than just acquaintances when working together at Southport High School as maintenance employees. Police found blood evidence in the Derringer house in 1996 and wanted to compare it to blood evidence found in Noicki's house during the Louks investigation. Noicki pleaded not guilty to the weapons charges. He was released from prison in 2003 and died from cancer on August 29 of that year. He never gave a deathbed confession. Greenwood PD stated the case would likely never officially be solved with Noicki dead. Noicki is not the only person who acted suspiciously after Brookley's disappearance. So did her father, Scott Louks. He and Noicki were regular fishing buddies. Greenwood police believed Louks had withheld helpful information related to Brookley's disappearance. They never named him as a suspect, however. Prosecutors gave Louks immunity after he spoke with investigators in July 2002. In no time at all, Louks had retained a lawyer and refused to speak further with investigators about his daughter's disappearance. In August 2002, prosecutors subpoenaed him to force him to reveal the withheld information. However, his attorney contended the police had demanded details about Louks' past irrelevant to his daughter's disappearance. Shortly after Brookley went missing, Scott moved out of his Yorktown Farms apartment and began drinking alcohol and using drugs. He died of natural causes related to his addiction on November 3, 2002. He was 47. Mr. Louks told WTHR in 2013, he, Scott, did nothing but cry from the time he got up. He did not want me to leave the house. He was afraid something would happen. I didn't really understand it at that time. Sergeant Eric Klinkowski of the Greenwood Police Department made a strange statement to WTHR at that time. I could go the rest of my life not knowing what happened. But the family, they're missing a loved one. Okay, say what? Tell me you don't give a shit about Brookley without telling me you don't give a shit about Brookley. Brookley Louks' surviving family members believe Noicki killed her, but he did not act alone. In 2018, Brookley Louks' case was featured on the popular and well-known true crime podcast, The Vanished, hosted by Marissa Jones. Jones interviewed Ms. Louks, Brookley's younger sister. Ms. Louks claimed at least 10 people know bits and pieces that refuse to talk, but there's no hard evidence against these people to make them talk. Brookley Louks has never been found, and her case remains unsolved nearly 19 years after she vanished. If you have information relevant to the disappearance of Brookley Louks, please call the Greenwood PD at 317-887-5212.
Number 3.
Amanda Lee Fravel was born on May 9, 1966, and grew up in Rancho Cordova. She was a gorgeous petite woman with bleached blonde hair, green eyes, and a dazzling smile. Most people called her Mandy. She did not have a happy upbringing. Her family life was chaotic and troubling, and the situation caused her great distress. In 1985, Amanda relocated to Las Vegas to distance herself from her dysfunctional family. She moved in with a friend and the friend's family before finding an apartment of her own. But her salary at Taco Bell was not enough to pay for rent, so she moved in with a roommate, Lou Frank, on South 3rd Street. Frank was older, in his 40s, and loved having young people visit his apartment. One might call him a creeper, or that might just be me. How Amanda met Frank is unclear, but she might have answered a newspaper advertisement seeking a roommate. Amanda did not own a vehicle, and her mode of transportation choice is unknown. She likely took public transportation or walked everywhere. A friend said Amanda had completely stopped hitchhiking after a bad experience. Amanda's mother sent her money for airfare back to Rancho Cordova in June 1986 for a visit, and she was to board the plane on June 14. On June 13, 1986, Amanda, 20, had plans to pick up her paycheck at Taco Bell and visit her ex-boyfriend, Xavier, last name unknown. However, she never arrived at either location and never showed up in California, but a friend said she most likely would not have traveled there due to her family's history. The friend also said Amanda told her she desired to go to Canada to meet a musician. Shortly after her disappearance, Amanda's mother and stepfather traveled to Vegas. They first met with her boyfriend and later visited Frank at the apartment he shared with Amanda. Someone had packed up all of Amanda's personal belongings. She owned 2 tiny kittens. No one had fed or taken care of them since June 13. It was uncharacteristic of Amanda as she loved animals and would not have abandoned her kittens. Amanda's mother's stepfather grew suspicious of Frank. He claimed he was from Georgia but had no southern accent. He told them he moved to Vegas to open a brothel. According to the Charlie Project, there is no record of Frank in Nevada state records. It's possible Lou Frank is an alias. His current whereabouts are unknown, and police never named him as a suspect in Amanda's case. Alice at Defrosting Cold Cases reported that DNA is available in Amanda Fravel's case. If you have any information about the disappearance of Amanda Lee Fravel, please contact the Las Vegas Metro Police at 702-828-3563.
Number 4.
On the 16th of February 1984, at approximately 11:15 p.m., Renee's mother Morna saw her daughter off for the very last time. Renee's bed was small, a few of her favorite stuffed teddies sitting on top, and she shared the room with her older brother Bradley. She was 5 and was reported to have been wearing a blue and white striped pajama suit. At around 3 a.m.-4 a.m., Bradley woke from his sleep. Even though the worst of the night's storm had passed, he could still hear rain pelt down outside and felt a cold shiver run down his spine. He looked to see his sheets, once pulled up over his body, folded down neatly below his knees. Bradley leaned over to Renee's bed, attempting to nudge her awake, but Renee wasn't in her bed. He got up, walked to the bathroom across the hall, and flicked on the light. Renee wasn't there. Bradley, drowsy and confused, began to scour the house, searching high and low, and even checking the fridge. It wasn't until he turned to find the back door wide open that Bradley really started to panic. Morna and Morna's fiancé, Neil, woke that morning to Morna's son Bradley telling them Renee's gone. Morna drowsily disregarded it at first, but the more Bradley insisted, the more Morna and Neil began to realize something was terribly wrong. Their worry turned into outright dread when they checked Renee and Bradley's room. Morna immediately called police to report Renee as a missing person, while Neil drove around the flooded streets, searching for any sign of their missing little girl. They found nothing. Renee was gone. The moment police heard about Renee's disappearance, they sprang into action. A 5-year-old child going missing was one problem, but a young white 5-year-old child missing in a nice suburban neighborhood in the middle of a stormy night was another. A search party consisting of 60 volunteers began searching the Narooma region for any sign of Renee. As the hours passed, the search party grew, and by the 18th of February they were joined by a police helicopter, a tracker dog, and the Miranda-based Regional Crime Squad. This search became one of Narooma's, if not New South Wales', biggest land searches, lasting over 14 days with over 200 searchers in all. Every home in the Narooma region was combed, bushland was scoured, and inland waterways were searched. Investigators looked through the Aitken home, but again they hit a dead end. The Aitkens' home was left unlocked at the time of Renee's disappearance, making it possible for anybody to enter, and Renee's bed was left neat, showing no signs of a struggle between Renee and a potential abductor. On the 19th of February 1984, police announced their suspicions that Renee may have been abducted from her bed and taken from the Narooma region by somebody trying to pass her off as a relative. Police had received information on the 17th of February, the day Renee was reported, of a potential sighting. 3 independent witnesses described to police a man 170 centimeters tall, estimated to be between 32 and 35 years old, with a thin build, sandy-colored hair and a large nose, who was seen in the Bega district approximately an hour away from Narooma. The man, wearing light-colored trousers and a fawn shirt, was seen shopping in a Fosse's department store at approximately 10 a.m. with a young girl who looked strikingly similar to Renee. They purchased a matching skirt and top and a tracksuit for the girl, who appeared to be helping him pick out the clothing. Whether this was indeed Renee has not been confirmed. On the 22nd of February 1984, Renee Aitken and her fiancé Neil made an appeal to Renee's abductor, pleading for him to contact police and let them know if Renee was still alive. For the next 2 months, 2 additional large-scale searches were conducted. The second focused on bushland and cliffs around Narooma. The third focused on a region between central Tilba and Dignam's Creek after an unusual smell, the Sydney Morning Herald 1984, was reported and followed investigations in Melbourne, Victoria. Though the region had been searched previously, a second search was deemed necessary due to the difficult terrain. This third search, however, was different from the previous 2. Police had recently received information from a 21-year-old man, information which led them to believe that Renee Aitken had been murdered and buried in a shallow grave in the bushland surrounding Narooma. Neither Renee's remains nor any signs of Renee were recovered in any of these searches. Less than 2 months after Renee's disappearance, New South Wales approved a $50,000 reward for anyone able to provide information leading to Renee. Batemans Bay Detective Sergeant Ted Freeman added, "The information can be given to us discreetly or any way they please. Even if the information is given anonymously, we need to have it." Treasure 2001. No new information was brought forward, and the case of Renee Aitken quickly became cold.